Our next inductees into the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame this evening, Henry and Gary Sanchez.
What does it mean to you to be inducted into the Hall of Fame and be able to be inducted with your dad?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me was being able to do it with my dad. Him just being my dad, and working with him as a track coach, and then his support that he had for me all these years was just so meaningful in my life. So I was so proud that he was. I was so proud when he was National Track Coach of the Year. And then I'm very proud. This is very prestigious for both of us. I'm so happy that he's in it. And I'm so glad to be just put in there with him. That makes me feel, big time proud.
What sort of influence did your dad have on your coaching career?
As a coach, a lot of it was the same as he was as a father. I just remember when I had graduated from high school and then went into college, played a little bit of football at UNM, and then as I was no longer playing, he asked me to come in and why don't you come and assist me? He led me to officiating also. You ought to go officiate. So he was really instrumental in me doing some things, but he was just being a dad and a father. So it was just it was kind of went hand in hand with him, and then to get to work with him was just it was really, we were close. He taught me a lot. He was a role model, a father, and a head coach to a young assistant.
Do you remember your first day as a head coach?
As a head coach, I do. I was young and I was saying, oh, I'm ready to do this, and I can do this, and then I was there, and you start to feel, okay, first few days are okay, and then later, as you start doing more and just all the things you have to do. Being an assistant's fun, but it was really exciting being in there that day, just being head coach, taking over for Dad.
When you were younger, do you remember watching your dad as a coach out there?
Well, I was a little hornet, I was in Highland High School. It's so fun to see, as I got into coaching and see my peers and the other coaches bring their kids into the locker rooms, and you see little kids are writing on the board, they're running around, they're playing with basketballs or batons or whatever. We try and keep them away from javelins. But, it was just so fun to be there at Highland. And, those guys were just giants. And I was just, that was my dad coaching them, but I wanted to be with, I was always with Dad, so I wanted to be with the guys. So, I was just always there, and it was fun.
What would you say is the highlight of your dad's career?
The one thing that I asked him, Dad, what did you enjoy most? He's going to say this. And he doesn't remember as much. As the mind kind of wears away and dementia sets in a little bit, is that he'll always tell me, I enjoyed working with the kids. That always comes to mind from him. That always does. And he's always said, the kids were really good. They treated me very well. All right, they were so good to me. And he enjoyed working with them. He was so good at personal relationships, and he enjoyed that time with it. The meets, of course. But one of the big highlights for him was he had one of his former students, who's now an attorney here in town, Michael Dano, took him to the 1984 Olympics in LA. And he went, they stayed together, they went to many of the meets together. And one time, that was so nice of you, Mike, why'd you do that? And he says, he was my coach and he helped me in so many ways. And I think that was a huge highlight. Not just Mike, and that was special for him, but that he was able to work with all those kids.
What would you say is the highlight of your coaching career?
A lot the same, but you know, working with kids and just trying to get better and continue the program. I did not want to see the program go down. You know, that was one thing. But the other highlight was working with my dad, and then learning from him, and then getting that opportunity to step into, you know, the third coach at Highland High School. And then I think to keep the program going as we did, it was a huge highlight. There are a lot of meets along the way. There were a lot of special athletes, which, you know, all coaches have, but that was really, those are special moments.
Is there one technique or coaching philosophy that you got from your dad that was handed down?
Work with people. You know, it's a team sport, and but you're working with individuals, and that's what we loved about track. You know, it had the team concept, but so much of it you're working with individuals, and the things that he was so good at that he handed down to me. I don't know if I always did as well as he did. I know I did a lot of good things and took some things from him, but he was so good at working with young people. And it wasn't, you know, we say track and field's not an X and O's. All right, there's a lot of technique involved in it, and you have to work together as a team. But you know, the big thing is really structured by talking to those kids. Yeah, you learn techniques, you train them, you get them ready for the meet, and that was his specialty. You know, taking kids and knowing when to step in and really talk to them, and how to talk to them. And he always said that, you know, you work with kids as individuals, as young adults, and then as time goes and big meets come or certain times in a young man's life, you step in and you just ask them for a little more. And it's nothing that they can't do, but it's just getting that little extra out of them. And he was so mindful of that.
And when you look back on this day, being inducted into the Hall of Fame, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, what are you going to remember most? What's going to stick out?
Being a Highland Hornet, starting as a young boy, and then I went to Del Norte High School, and that's where I competed. And we competed against them. But it was like, after practice, there were times that I asked Dad to come out and help me. So I remember that a lot, you know, getting help from my coach, and then from my dad, and then being able to work with him. I remember when I took over the job, I was at Millie Stadium, and I was first year, and I go, I wonder what it's going to be like in 20 years. Here I was about 26 years old, and you go, you know, what's it like? I hit that 20 years, and then I went another 9. So that one really stands out to me. I mean, I surpassed that 20. We kept going at Highland. There was a lot of meets, a lot of kids. It just, there were a lot of good times. And track's a great sport.
At this time, please help me welcome New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame inductee, Gary Sanchez.
Much. You know, it's been a hard 9 days, and so many of you know. But I want to give a special thanks to Mike for letting me go second. And you know, what a great athlete. But you know, you young people out there, and this guy's approaching 50. Did you see him on those ropes and on the sit-ups and doing those things? This guy's a great athlete. Thank you, Mike. Okay, let's see how I do. You know, my dad and I want to thank the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame, its board members, and a special thanks to Eugene Pino, a longtime friend who helped initiate this honor and guide us through the process of this special evening. He was a student teacher for my father, and my dad said that he was the best student teacher that he ever had. We are honored to be part of the Sports Hall of Fame, who represents so many highly respected coaches, athletes, and athletic administrators. For all the years of coaching, we've been lucky to have the support of so many people. This has helped us to achieve the levels that we were able to succeed at. First, our family, who are here with us tonight. My sisters Debbie and Tina. My brother-in-law, Bob Hudnall. Their daughters, Erin and Leah. My stepdaughter, Nicole. Along with the great-grandchildren, Evangeline and Riley. And to all my uncles, aunts, and cousins, and friends who made the journey to be here with us to make this a special honor. Thank you. When I first got married to Claudia, my mom told her, there's a good chance that coaches' wives could go to heaven first. We hope that that's true. You know, a very special thanks to you, my wife Claudia, for all the bulletin boards, the fundraisers, the team and coaches' dinners, and many more things, but most of all, your support. And oh, for wearing blue and gold, even though she was a Sandia Matador. There's no doubt that my dad thanks you, Mom, for being an extraordinary wife of 65 years and an outstanding mother. She's a sports fan, but especially a Hornet fan. Although, Mike, she loves horse racing and she's known to bet on a horse or two, I hope she was betting on the ones that you came in first. She only bet to win, never to place a show. You know, my dad, in 1953, worked for Belen High School. Shortly after, he contracted bubonic polio and couldn't complete the contract there. After a long 4-month recovery, he took on some odd jobs until he was hired at Emerson Elementary, Wilson Junior High School, and then in 1959 he became the second track and field coach at Highland High School to succeed Coach Hugh Hackett, a former member of this great Hall of Fame. When my dad was asked who are your best athletes or favorite teams, his answer was always the same. I had so many great athletes and great teams, no one being more special than the other. What he felt was special were the stories for each individual athlete and each team. It didn't matter to my dad whether you were in PE class or in athletics. He just loved working with the young kids. And he said that to the end of his life. The lessons my dad gave me on track and field were many. I want you to think about track. Such a great sport. One man challenges the other. I'll race you 50 yards. You can't beat him there, let's go 200. You can't beat him at that, let's try a mile till you get to that guy. Or what about the guys pick up a rock and who can throw it farther? You know, what gives track athletes this inspiration? It's the will to do better and the passion to achieve. It's what we call the spirit of sport. Our job as their coaches was to guide them, motivate, ensure that they were capable of doing anything with hard work and dedication. Mike McKeechin, a former assistant coach for my dad, said, your dad taught me that coaching is simply working with young people, training and teaching them, getting them better than they were before. Find a way for those athletes to give a little more than they thought they were capable of giving. Train them hard during the early meets, and when they get to the bigger meets, ask them for a little more. Most importantly, though, it was imperative to my dad that his boys understood the value of sportsmanship. Respect your opponents and always be humble. You know, you could joke with my dad to an extent. Just like the boys who carried his Volkswagen Bug up the steps at Highland High School. The next day when the boys said, hey coach, how you doing? He said, "I am doing good. Oh, by the way, 6th period, you're going to be running." Before football practice that day, he told Coach Gentry, "Hey, your weightlifters, they're already warmed up, ready to go. Don't worry." When the cross-country boys came back from a long run at practice, and they had a rattlesnake in their hand, "What do we do with this, Coach?" He helped get the snake out of their hand with nobody getting hurt. He was somebody that you could count on. What they were getting a rattlesnake for, I don't know. You know, kid. He was always supportive to me. He asked me how things are going. I said, "We're doing good. We don't have the same numbers coming out as we used to." But he always says, "Gary, you're doing a good job. Just stay with it, keep him going." I always had that to count on him. And he could be stern at times. During a meet, 2 of the better athletes ran a subpar performance, and the coach and staff acknowledged the poor performance. But there was a young coach who continued to express his displeasure. Finally, Coach Sanchez said, "That's enough." A little later, both boys went to that coach and said, "We're sorry, Coach. We'll do better next time." That young coach was me. And he always asked you to be humble. My dad was a master at making young people better, even his coaches. This was his legacy. My dad coached with a gentle soul and always a positive attitude. He was a strong figure in his athletes' lives. His diligence, patience allowed his athletes to prosper and grow as young men. He was the same kind of father. I can still hear him say today, to have a successful track team, you have to have good field events. I would often see him reading articles, listening to motivational tapes, finding a way to teach the boys. He used to watch what was called loop film. You older coaches will know this. That's where you get one piece of film, small, and it just goes over and over and over. He'd watch it, he'd have his boys watch it. And he was a great field event coach. He was a master at that, but he always kept trying to get better. He was a player's coach. He let his athletes grow to be kids, yet he had that touch to bring them in and knew when to bring them back and teach them some more. His strongest suit was the way he had constant communication with his teams. He always knew who needed extra help and found the extra time to give a word of encouragement or some individual attention. By the time my dad's teams got to the big meets, they were well prepared. In 1977, he asked me to help him coach. After a few years, I changed my major to education, and I was on the road to hopefully being the guy that would proudly follow in his footsteps. Thank you, Dad. Since Highland opened its doors, they've had over 900 people on the podium receiving a medal. That's an average of 14 a year. He had over 130 ring gold medals. The goal was was to always prepare to win, but the ultimate story was the road to the goal. I believe I've based my career as a coach that in athletics you gain an education through athletics and competition. With dedication, hard work, persistence, and the desire to move forward, these athletes that we've helped guide have become successful businessmen, good husbands and fathers, and leaders in their community. I strongly believe that every coach or teacher helped make these things all possible. I will agree, and proudly, that I'm my father's son. I hear people say that they see me in him. There are a lot of similarities. We both coached track, cross country, and football at Highland, and we loved it. We both refereed football and basketball. I've heard some people say we have some of the same mannerisms. And in our last state track meet, we both finished second. You know, the other day as my stepdaughter Nicole left his home a couple of weeks ago, She told him, "Henry, I'll see you in Albuquerque." He replied, "Oh yeah, that big event that we're having over there." He said, "I'm sure happy for Gary." She goes, "Henry, it's also for you." And he says, "I know, but I'm sure happy for Gary." And when people would come and say, "Hey, congratulations," I'd tell them thank you. And I'm so proud and happy to be in there with my father. You know, we were proud of each other. As his legs weakened and his mind started to forget more, I was concerned that Dad wouldn't be able to enjoy the honor tonight to its fullest. I do know, however, that over the past month, he had time to reflect on what this evening was about. Towards the end of his life, I had him looking through his collection of Highland annuals, which are now called yearbooks, which he enjoyed as if he was reading them for the first time, looking at all those pictures and all of you former athletes who are out there tonight. For all of his former athletes who wanted to see and chat with Coach, please know that he had nothing but kind words for all of you boys who are now men. You were the light for him, and he cherished the time being with you. Last but not least, I want to thank all the administration, the students, and all the athletes at Highland, and of course every assistant coach Dad and I had. None of our success would have been possible without their help and dedication. Coach Gentry, when you guys came in, you both assisted each other. Coach Church, Coach Garrett, Coach Silverberg, Stuart Burgess, who helped both of us, John Stewart, Jeff and Ted Cisneros, John Allison, who just recently passed away, Steve Carafa, Andy Murray, a great loyal friend, and the other great loyal friend was Coach Stacy Washington, now the 4th head coach at Highland High School. But there's two men I want to talk about. Mike McKeechin, who ran for my dad and was also a great coach, went on to college, a great college career. He loved and appreciated you so much. And Gray Nevelos, what a wonderful friend. We coached together, and we're getting ready for this event. And I said, "Gray, can you go up and help my mom and dad for a couple days to go to the doctors and run the blood test, and my sisters will be coming very soon." And he said, "Sure, no problem." He's going to stay a couple days. He went for the blood test and took him to the doctor. And he says, "I got to go home for a day, but I'll be back." And he was back there with my dad when he died. And my dad, always the prankster, that morning, Gray went in and helped him get up, and they were moving him around. And to the end of his life, he said, they had been joking on this, he said, "You know, Gray, you're not very strong, are you?" And Gray would look at him and say, "No, you're just real heavy, Henry." Once again, to be inducted to the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame, it's a dream come true for both of us. I knew when this time would come that they would wheel Dad up and I would get to say, for me personally, to be inducted with my father, mentor and hero, is no bigger honor. And I would turn to him and say it. Because I was going to say, "Dad, in my eyes, you were the best. Thank you very much."
Presenting Gary with winner of Hall of Fame portrait is board member Gene Peter. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me honor once again the 2014 inductees into the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame, Mike Smith, Henry, and Gary Sanchez. Board member Russell Goff would also like to present the Hall of Fame inductee portrait to, I believe, Mrs. Sanchez and their table. And lastly tonight, I'd like to welcome back to the podium New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame President, Mrs. Gail Lovato, with closing remarks.
Thank you, JP. You always do a wonderful job. We're so pleased to have you. And again, I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight. It's been very special. And congratulations to all of our award winners. And messages from the side. And all the people that had anything to do with putting on our wonderful banquet this evening. We do want to remind you that the silent auction is still going on outside. If you'd like to go out there and sign your name, we would very much appreciate it. And I do want to remind you to check the website and remember to sign the sheets at your table if you did not receive a program. And most of all, we'd like you to be safe. Thank you for attending, and please come back next year. Thank you so much.